Abyssal Murmurs. Lately, I've been trying to send you stories every day, but I feel like a large number of people who have signed up almost never come back to listen to the stories. I don't know where that is. Make you unhappy. I hope to receive comments and suggestions from you. And if you find the video good, please give me a like to give me more motivation. For those who have not yet subscribed, don't forget to click the subscribe button and press notification bell to wait for the next story. Now let's get into the story. Story 1. My friend Brian and I used to be big on urban exploration, especially in the dark. About a half-hour drive away from our houses is an old hospital/asylum that's been abandoned for decades. It hasn't been torn down because it's in a really secluded location and it would just cost too much money. Brian and I wanted to bring a Ouija board along with us and explore it one Thursday night. Pulling into the unlit parking lot and seeing the massive structure standing tall in the night, even we were having second thoughts. Gangs were known to hide out in this building, or at least that's been rumored. Surprisingly, there didn't seem to be any security patrolling the perimeter, so the process of getting in was pretty easy. We found a broken window that seemed to have been made into a common entryway by other urban explorers and delinquents. Brian and I have a lot of experience exploring abandoned structures at night, and admittedly, even we were creeped out by this building. We made our way to the highest floor and did a little exploring up there. There were so many holes in the floor that our confidence in the structure holding our weight was low. The floors were creaky and soft in certain spots, and there were rooms that led into dark nothingness. Every time I'd shine my light down into one of them, I'd have the haunting thought of someone or something being inside one of them. We found a good spot to set up the Ouija board and candles. Yeah, we went all out with this. When the candles were lit, Brian and I placed our hands on the planchette and began our attempt at communicating with some kind of spirits. We weren't really the type to joke around with it, so we weren't pushing it around ourselves just to mess with each other. However, the planchette didn't move the whole time. Maybe that was because our Ouija board session was interrupted when we heard a creaking noise coming from inside one of the dark, open rooms nearby. It wasn't just a fluke noise. It was a steady, consistent creaking. Brian and I quietly packed up our stuff, and he whispered to me to go shine the light inside of the room. I whispered, "He's gotta be crazy. What if gang members were in there?" Brian whispered, "Forget it. I'll do it." I whispered no, but he either ignored me or didn't hear me. He tiptoed over to the doorway, which was pointless, given that he'd be shining a light into the room. However, he never even turned that light on, because before he could, a distinct, quiet, short, yet sharp laughing or cackling could be heard coming from inside the room. It sounded like an older woman's cackle. It was the most disturbing moment of my life. Brian screamed, "Run!" and we both ran down the 10th flight of stairs and back out the window we'd climbed in through. We continued running all the way back to my car and drove out of the woodsy property. We swore to never go back there, and we haven't. The thing that sucks is that we usually recorded our visits to places like this, and one of the few times we didn't, the most disturbing moment of my life took place. Story 2. It happened one night when my parents and I were hearing noises coming from outside of our farmhouse. The best way I could describe the noises were various types of cracking and thud sounds. My dad and I met in the living room to discuss what we should do, because we were positive that there must have been people out there stealing our produce. My dad ran to his gun closet and drew his shotgun, and together we stormed outside into the night, turning on all of the lights mounted on the outside walls of the house. My dad apparently saw somebody because he started yelling stop as he ran to the crops. I followed him, and I too started to spot legs running underneath the crops. The legs of 2 or more people. My dad called at me to keep up with him as he chased down the thieves in the dark, approaching the woods. After running about 50 feet into the woods, my dad stopped and reached out his arm to signal for me to stop as well. As I was choking for air while out of breath, I watched my dad as he stood in place, looking around us. I swear, we were standing still for like 30 seconds in silence. I didn't have the energy to ask what he was doing, but eventually I caught on. I saw what my dad was looking at. There was a person standing about 10 feet away from us, but all I could see was his face, since he was mostly covered by a bush. The sound of an October leaf crunching nearby revealed there to be another person standing only 10 feet away. As my dad and I looked around more carefully, we realized there were more than just 2 guys watching us. There were 7, or 8, or 9, or even more. My dad slowly looked back at me, and then back at the person closest to him. What made this scene so much more disturbing? We could only see the people's faces, which were partially illuminated by the moonlight. My dad took a few steps back and broke the silence by saying, "We're leaving." We both started walking backwards, noticing the people were inching closer at the same time. My dad waved the shotgun around to let them all know he was armed. When we made it past the tree line and back onto the property, we sprinted back to the house. I'd never seen my old man run so fast in his life. He slammed the door behind him and watched the windows with the gun still in his hand while I called the sheriff's office. The cops took a while to respond, about 15 minutes, and the 2 officers that showed up were very unhelpful. They only asked questions and took down notes. They didn't actually go looking for the group we encountered. The cops left within 10 minutes, but it ultimately didn't matter because by the next day, nothing happened. So we assumed it was over, and it was. There was never any follow-up to this. Story 3. A friend and I were on a road trip from South Carolina to Jersey, where we'd be meeting with a bunch of friends. We left late in the day to avoid traffic. We were somewhere in Maryland when my friend had to get off the highway to find the nearest bathroom. I don't mean to piss. He had the runs all of a sudden and needed to go really badly. We were driving around some desolate town looking for a place for him to go. There was practically no traffic and all the store lights were off. The place was a ghost town. The further from the highway we got, the quieter and creepier the surroundings got as well. Eventually, we came across a small 24-hour ghetto-looking Dunkin' Donuts. It was an outlet though, so we had to pull around the strip to a basically hidden parking lot around back. There was not a single other car in the lot. It was so hidden that nobody would ever find it unless they were looking for it. We knew we were in a sketchy area, so I begged him to just hurry back. He said he'd be back in no less than half an hour, as he cracked a smile, reminding me of his annoying humor. He ran off around the building as I sat in the car, windows rolled up and doors locked. A pretty bad motion sickness was still wearing off, so I figured it wouldn't hurt to step outside for half a minute just to get some fresh air. As I stood outside in that lot, I was constantly examining my surroundings. It took me a while to take notice to somebody standing all the way down at the far side of the parking lot. Now it was dark, but I could still tell they were facing the direction of the car. In direct response to that, I got back in the car and locked the door once again. I guess that was a bad move, because the person at the end of the lot started slowly yet menacingly approaching the car. Maybe whoever that person was saw my reaction as cowardice, and therefore saw me as an easy target. Either way, I texted my friend to come back right away since he had the keys and explained why. The person was getting closer, slowly but surely. I desperately stared at the screen, awaiting my friend's response, just like a guy awaiting a response from his crush. By the time my friend answered the text, he said, "Wait, for real?" I replied yes, within the same 2 seconds. He answered back with, "Shit," laughing my ass off. "All right, be right out." I texted back, "This is serious, dude." The person was a couple 100 feet away at this point. He was so close that I was about to get out of the car and run. My friend came running around the building just in time. He spotted the guy right away and hopped in the car. We took off with only seconds to spare. We stopped a couple blocks down the road to catch our breath and discuss. My heart was still racing and I was still in panic mode. Meanwhile, my friend started to find it more and more hilarious. Eventually, far enough into the ride, I was able to laugh about it. But still, it was scary, and still is scary to think about what would have happened if that person made it to the car. Maybe nothing. Maybe he just wanted change. Or maybe a lot worse. Thank you for always supporting the channel and welcoming its videos. Wishing you good health, and remember to subscribe to the channel to achieve 1,000 subscriptions.